We hope you had a good day. Thank you for joining us here on KTN Prime.
A very big welcome to you. And have you seen in the highlights, we'll be bringing you that story about a government tender that is raising a lot of eyebrows. But first, the government has unveiled a plan that could see the country spend over 87.6 billion shillings to fight terror and boost security.
Yes, the strategic plan for the next 4 years will see, among other things, the installation of CCTV cameras, the purchase of helicopters and speedboats, and the decentralization of passport issuance.
Stakeholders have already begun consultations on this strategic plan.
Rita Tanina has the key highlights of that plan.
With the ever-increasing threat of terror, security remains one of the government's key challenges. At the CID training school, stakeholders gathered to look at the country's third strategic plan for the Ministry of Interior and coordination of national government.
And many a times we have been accused of applying knee-jerk reactions to situations because we do not plan. We have no clear forward thinking.
The strategic plan, which will run until the year 2017, covers a broad range of issues and does not come cheap. According to the plan, CCTV cameras will be installed in major towns such as Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Garissa, Nyeri and Kakamega at a cost of 15 billion shillings. The police air wing is set for an upgrade. 10 twin-engine helicopters will be acquired for 18 billion shillings, while 1.1 billion shillings will be used to overhaul the Mi-17-3 Russian helicopters. To enhance patrols, 2 helicopters will be hired for 1 billion shillings. It will cost 6 billion shillings for the government to construct houses for police officers, 2,000 units each year until the year 2017. Comprehensive life insurance and medical covers for police officers will be acquired at a cost of 10 billion shillings. For 6 billion shillings, the government will establish Huduma centers at the ward level and decentralize the issuance of passports to Kisii, Nyeri, Bungoma, Dubai, Pretoria and Berlin at a cost of 90 million shillings. To enhance containment of offenders and foster effective correctional services, just over 2 billion shillings will be used to construct 12 new prisons in, among other areas, Yatta, Marimanti, Kehancha, Loitoktok and Bomet.
We are deliberately putting a clear roadmap, long-term, short-term, clear strategies, goals that we all will gear ourselves to achieving the same.
For now, the strategic plan remains good only on paper, and the Ministry of Interior will be banking on budgetary allocations and donor funding to make the plans a reality as the country continues with the search for the perfect formula to deal with its security challenges. Rita Tanina, KTN, Nairobi.
Let's stay with security matters. And telecommunications giant Safaricom and the Attorney General have been sued over the security contract to install CCTV cameras in Nairobi and Mombasa. 2 activists have launched a petition faulting the procurement process. And as KTN's Asha Mwilu reports, pressure is now mounting on the government to call off the deal.
There is no doubt that security has been one of the major headaches for President Uhuru Kenyatta's young government. And now an integral part of the new security strategy is the installation of CCTV cameras in major cities like Nairobi and Mombasa. However, there is mounting criticism over the government's decision to single source the installation of this surveillance system from a private company. 2 activists have now moved to court to petition the single sourcing of this CCTV security contract. Okia Omtata and Wycliffe Nyakina are suing Safaricom, the Attorney General, and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over the procurement exercise. The activists claim that the procurement was scandalous and a violation of the Constitution and the statutes. And that's not the only red flag raised.
Doesn't this agreement between the government of Kenya and Safaricom amount to outsourcing the security of the Kenyan people? And as we know, security is a prime responsibility of any government.
The necessary procurement process was followed. We are aware of individuals' concern, and we continue to open the process for all and sundry to see. So really, there was no problem with regard to that.
We are ready, willing and available to explain and answer anyone who has any questions within established structures and within established frameworks of handling that matter, but not to discuss national security in a cheap way at press conferences to seek cheap publicity or cheap popularity by trying to claim certain things have been done in the wrong manner when we even do not know actually what we are talking about.
This is how the integrated public safety communication and surveillance system is supposed to work. CCTV cameras will be installed on the streets. Any data collected from the cameras and the walkie-talkies used by police officers will be relayed to Safaricom's transmission network. Then the information is dispatched to a command center manned by the police.
I don't think they can work.
Security consultant Francis Maina deals in sophisticated security equipment like armored cars and CCTV cameras. Like many security analysts, Francis faults the decision to give Safaricom the security deal.
London is the most secure city with the CCTV cameras, but they are manned by the Scotland Yard because it is not well. It doesn't go very well for people who don't work for the intelligence. They have no loyalty. They can disclose confidential intelligence matters.
Then at the command and control center, it's going to be the police service, and whatever else gets bolted into it will be the government of Kenya. We will be running this thing like we run a network. We don't listen to what you have to say. Interesting though it might be, I'm sure.
Parliament's National Security and Communication Committees are investigating the Safaricom contract. But what could be the game changer is the petition filed at the High Court discrediting the entire procurement process that the government followed. Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
That brings us to our big question tonight. We're asking, should Kenyans be denied the right to question security contracts because of national security? Should Kenyans be denied the right to question security contracts because of national security?
That's right. On one hand, people want to know how money is being spent, but on the other, of course, there are some national security concerns. Let us know what your opinion is, and you can do that by sending an SMS to 22155, begin with a yes or a no, and then your comment, or you can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Kachungira, I forgot my own handle there, and at Wilson_Mburu. Next tonight, well, the sky's the limit for the president's speeches, apparently. Kenyans have expressed disappointment at the sight of a tender notice in one of the print dailies that is asking for bid to deliver the president's speeches across the country. Now, their biggest question is, why is money being spent by a digital government to send the president's speeches in a very traditional manner? Well, KTN's Joy Doreen Bira tells us more.
It is a tender notice by the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government in one of the print dailies that has sparked criticism across the board, especially on social media. The tender in question is one that requires a bid bond of 500,000 Kenya shillings to execute the duties for the delivery of presidential speeches, a duty that many say is no longer needed now that we are in the digital age.
Despite the fact that in the past the printing had a place, we're now in a position where technology has provided us with many platforms through which the speeches can be transmitted. I therefore feel that an advertisement in this day and age for airlifting presidential speeches is overtaken by time.
The national days in this case would be the three most important days on the Kenyan calendar: Madaraka, Mashujaa and Jamhuri Days. But with the current digital platforms availed with improved technology, the question that most Kenyans are now asking is whether or not the county commissioners are too incapacitated to use modern technology to access, download and deliver the president's speeches.
I think it's time we invested in a secure portal where such kind of speeches, government documents, are transmitted real time to county commissioners, and not only speeches and documents, but also create an environment where we are able to have video conferencing with county commissioners from one central portal.
Airlifting of presidential speeches has been a tradition for years, since Independence Days. The president's speech was printed a day before a national holiday and sent to provincial commissioners and DCs, who would then read the president's speech at the same time he delivered the speech to the nation. The airlifting, however, was used in hard-to-reach places due to distance and terrain of these areas then. But why spend so much on a delivery to be made 3 times a year, yet the government has got a full-fledged digital communications docket?
Digitization is not going to be a magical moment. It is going to be an ongoing process.
Sources at the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government have revealed that the tender may be cancelled. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN.
Well, perhaps the tender should have been for digital services instead.
In the 21st century, this is what we are doing.
Well, let's move on. The death of a businessman after an attack by a group of shopkeepers triggered demonstrations in Nairobi's Eastleigh area that lasted for hours.
3 businessmen had invited the mob to beat the man on allegations that he was a thief, but his death almost paralyzed business at the usually busy market.
Here's KTN's Habiba Ali with the details.
This is where it all began. Samuel Mushei, a businessman and a father of 2, found himself on the receiving end of the blows and the kicks of an angry mob. A group of shop owners had alleged that Samuel had gone to their shop with the intention of stealing from them.
Kuna majamaa wawili ama watatu walitokea na wakasema ule mtu alikuwa mwizi. Wakamuuliza mzigo umetoa wapi? Yeye akawaelezea vizuri ametoa kwa duka ya ule mnono alikuwa pale master, ambaye anatabika kama master, ni Mtanzania. Akamwambia hiyo mzigo weka chini kwanza, wewe ni mwizi, nimekuwa nikiibiwa mzigo kwa maduka zangu.
The police intervened to save the life of the victim. Samuel was then rushed to Kijabe Hospital, where he was pronounced dead upon arrival. His death will trigger another chain of events in Eastleigh. A section of the business community took to the street to condemn the mob attack. Tension was high in the area for hours as the demonstrations went on. This brought business in the area to a standstill as tension fly high for hours.
Investigations are going on, hoping to get a clear result as to what happened.
This comes at a time when Eastleigh is just recovering from the police swoops conducted under the Operation Usalama Watch. Habiba Ali, KTN Prime.
The Kenya Air Force today marked its Golden Jubilee, with President Uhuru Kenyatta saluting the airmen for working professionally with other military formations in securing Kenyan airspace and borders. The President said the Air Force has shown exemplary performance in Operation Linda Nchi and later under AMISOM in the war on terror. KTN's Patrick Amimo has that story.
In the characteristic display of color and entertaining air displays, the Kenya Air Force marked their 50th anniversary at the Moi Air Base in Nairobi. The President laid wreaths of honor to KDF soldiers who died in the line of duty fighting to flush out the Al-Shabaab militia from Somalia during Operation Linda Nchi. The Kenya Air Force was lauded for the role it continues to play, especially in search and rescue missions, supply droves of medicines and food rations, and the airlift of civilians from war-torn South Sudan. The President said the Air Force has played a significant role in the war on terror against the Al-Shabaab militia in Somalia.
The Air Force has bolstered the Kenya Navy in its anti-piracy role in the Indian Ocean and has worked in tandem with the Kenya Army in the execution of Operation Linda Nchi in Somalia.
You have also advanced the cause of peace in the region. And I want to single out for commendation the part you and the KDF as a whole have played in operations in Somalia, where you have helped to bring peace to a troubled neighbor. Our borders must indeed be kept safe. We must join with our friends and neighbors to keep peace in our region.
The air display included these F-5 fighters commissioned in 1978 for use as air interceptors and ground attack aircraft. The helicopter can be used for cargo transport as well as dropping paratroopers behind enemy lines during war. The paratroopers also displayed their air prowess in landing with parachutes. The Air Force also displayed some of the other aircrafts like the Buffalo, which can be used for cargo transport and air surveillance. The Tucano aircraft, which was commissioned in 1990, was in display and is used in advanced flying training. The Kenya Air Force also has transport for dignitaries like the Fokker 50 and Dash 8, which were commissioned in 1995. The aircraft has on various occasions been used by Kenyan heads of state in foreign tours. And this one, the Globe 120A, is the latest aircraft by the Air Force, commissioned in 2013. It is used in basic flying training. Indeed, it was a great occasion as the Kenya Air Force marked 50 years in service. The soldiers have been advised to carry their work with distinction and ensure that our borders are safe. Patrick Amimo, KTN, at the Moi Air Base, Nairobi.
Some impressive displays there. Next, let's talk about Anglo Leasing. The Controller of Budget has told Parliament that Kenya risked losing over 20 billion shillings every year if the country failed to pay the Anglo Leasing contract's debt. The Controller of Budget admitted to approving the recent payment of 1.46 billion shillings after undertaking a cost-benefit analysis evaluating the country's financial situation. Here's Sam Ogina with more.
Confirmation whether indeed the Control of Budget.
With unending questions over the puzzle that is Anglo Leasing, the Controller of Budget now says she bailed government out on the 1.4 billion shillings payment as a lesser evil, since according to her, failure to pay would have cost the country over 22 billion shillings annually to local banks.
A further delay to repay the syndicated loan, which has now been extended to August, will result in an additional 1.2 billion. The Principal Secretary, National Treasury, informed the Control of Budget that it was projected that the annual cost of arising from failure to issue the sovereign bond would be in the region of 21 billion, in addition to the 1.2 billion. And
the Control of Budget admitted to sanctioning the payments without a word from either State House or Treasury, but as an independent office guided by the Constitution. After auditing government's financial position, the Control of Budget says government was in a precarious corner. The state had failed to pay a syndicated loan of 52 billion shillings by its May 2014 due date. As such, government accrued 1.2 billion shillings penalty for extending the repayment period for 3 months, and the Anglo Leasing debt was standing in the government's only way out of the debt.
The sovereign bond, Mr. Chairman, was intended to finance the budget deficit and repay the syndicated loan of $600 million, which was due in May 2014.
The admission comes against the backdrop of court's agitation for a refund of the billions paid to Anglo Leasing firms. Although the budget controller admitted that Anglo Leasing type contracts were fraudulent, she insists that the payment was legitimate.
A very strange determination from the Attorney General that is purporting to excuse these contracts from Anglo Leasing. Yet the EACC, Ethics and Corruption, in its letter, the paragraph I've just read, refers to all those contracts as security contracts.
The Control of Budget requests Parliament to ensure that the investigations in the two contracts are expedited. The investigations should seek to unearth the architects of the scheme, and all parties found culpable should face the full force of the law.
Already 570 million shillings has been paid to banks as extension fee, while another sum of 700 million shillings is to be paid in August as interest accrued for the 3 months extension. Samogina, KTN.
Tribalism, corruption, and other social evils in the country are largely as a result of the curriculum currently being used in the schools.
Well, this was said at an ongoing forum here in Nairobi that was meant to spearhead the review of the country's schools curriculum. Let's get more from Sharon Momanyi.
Academics and stakeholders in the education sector once again brought their heads together to grapple with a myriad of proposals on how to deal with often criticized education curriculum. The first issue of contention, however, was whether to lump together the discussions on overhauling the 844 education structure with debate on changing the curriculum, or whether to separate the two.
Nobody wants to be called as a nation of Kitikundogo. We can only become a nation of Kitikundogo if our curriculum does not address that issue.
The stakeholders zeroed in on the curriculum changes expected to take effect by next year, 2015. One of the areas of concern was the special needs of learners with disabilities. The current curriculum has been faulted for not making special considerations to accommodate such students, thus denying them a chance to compete fairly and have equal access as other students.
At primary school level, for example, is our education friendly and addresses their concerns or not?
All those issues about the core values of this nation, patriotism, issues of citizenship, those ones are left out of our school environment.
Lakini katika pale delivery of it, uko na walimu wenyewe ambao wana perpetrate ukabila ama kutoa mifano ya ukabila pale darasani, basi ule mtaala hautafaa.
Kwa walimu ambao wanafundisha na ambao ndio wanahusika sana na mambo ya implementation ya curriculum, tunataka wahusishwe vilivyo.
The Kenya Publishers Association was instructed to ensure that all publications hereon promote national unity.
And these are very well documented in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So it is crucial that these actually become the preamble in most of our books.
The inspectorate was set up in 1955 to maintain standards. The question is, which standards were they maintaining? Because for them to maintain a standard, it must be set first.
The stakeholders want the education system realigned with that of other East African countries, which are using the A-level system. This, they argue, will strengthen the education system in the region and enhance research and technological advancement in the region. Shalmo Manyi, KTN.
And now, a prison visit of a unique kind. Inmates at the Kingongo Maximum Prison spent time with a group of students from 3 secondary schools, giving them tales of life behind bars. Now, the prisoners warned the young learners that while breaking the law might seem like an exciting idea before one is caught, life in prison is actually painful and lonely. KTN's Carol Neri has that story.
Beyond prison gates is usually territory only known to the prison fraternity, and outsiders rarely get a chance to venture in. So it was not a small wonder to see students picking into the huge sufurias of ugali at the Kingongo Maximum Prison kitchen and even tasting the prison food that many stories have been told about. The inmates seemed delighted to receive visitors who undoubtedly broke the usual monotonous drill that is prison life. Students from Bishop Gatimu Ngandu Girls School, Mangu High School and Nyeri High School interacted with the prisoners for the better part of the day and even got a chance to share study tips with the prisoners under the prison school program, who never have it easy trying to balance schoolwork with the tedious, demanding prison itinerary. Nyeri High School has been consistent in its visits to the prison and has been involved in a number of projects.
We once built a library for them and even refurbished the kitchen. What we've learned from our experience in those 4 years is that human is to error. They are here on account of some errors, yes, but we've learned that everyone deserves a second chance in life, and that's why they're here, to be corrected and become useful members of the society once again.
For the first-timers, Mangu High and Bishop Gatimu Ngandu Girls, the tour of the prison under the presidential scheme school program and even the chit-chats with the guests of the state was a new, exhilarating experience.
The perspective that we had of this place was different from what you're getting right now, because you're finding that this, apart maybe from the food a little bit, everything else is more or less the same. They are just people like you and me who did some few things here and there which are wrong, and that's why they ended up here.
Sometimes it's challenging to get students to do community service because of their background. The society has taught them to be self-centered, to think about themselves. So when you find students coming to the prison to do something for someone else, then you find that they are going out of their way.
The prisoners too had pearls of wisdom for the students, lest they fall into the ways that the prisoners fell into themselves.
Kuna mtu hawezi kufanya makosa. Unaweza kuwa kule nje ukafikiria umeshinda lakini bado. So shikilia kalamu. Wengi wetu ni masomo ambayo kwa kukataa masomo ndio maana tumejikuta hapa ndani.
Usually prisoners face setbacks when the society shuns them, even after genuine rehabilitation. The prison's school head, Calvin Sachila, called on the community to grant second chances to the deserving ones.
We are so happy this day. It's a big day for us in our institution, having been visited by a very large number of students.
They need to come and see that they are people's husbands, people's fathers, people's children, people's, the society is here.
It is not always easy to convince members of the public that prisoners can and indeed do reform, but that is a crying call of the prisoners here at Kingongo Maximum Prison, who ask for a second chance, saying that they too can be integral members of the society. Carol Derry for KTN at Kingongo Maximum Prison.
My name is Bonitunya. This is Business. 4 international banks have been tasked to plan Kenya's debut Eurobond beginning tomorrow in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, New York and London until June the 15th. Now, this will be followed by the listing of the bond that is key in plugging the next financial year's budget deficit. Here's KTN's Adle Changole.
The 2-week-long roadshow is expected to highlight the $1.5 billion Eurobond potential investors abroad as back home the country prepares for the 2014-2015 financial year budget. The bond is a key component of the 1.9 trillion shilling budget. The maiden Eurobond will be listed on the Irish Stock Exchange. This Treasury says was approved after Kenya settled outstanding debts to Anglo Leasing related firms. The contentious 1.4 billion shillings was paid under presidential decree. But a new hurdle could face the issuance of the bond after businessman Anura Pereira, who is linked to the two firms, allegedly sent a fresh demand note asking for 3.1 billion shillings for what he terms as a pending contract.
From a standpoint now, we are not paying any other debt. This is a disputed debt and until it is resolved.
The funds from the 10-year bond will be used to plug the 330 billion shilling deficit in the national budget, finance energy projects and expand the power transmission network. But the bulk of the funds will be used to pay off the $600 million syndicated loan that was due in May. Kenya got a 3-month extension on the loan, which will cost the country an additional 1.2 billion as interest and extension fees.
They are looking at 8.9.
But even with optimism on the success of the bond by the National Treasury, concerns have been raised about the size of the bond. Razia Khan, the head of research at Standard Chartered Bank, says the country may not have a solid plan on utilizing the funds.
Kenya might be borrowing big when it doesn't yet have the capacity to implement projects really fast.
The pricing of the bond too has been put to question, especially compared to what African peers have auctioned similar bonds for in the past.
I still believe that the rate is a bit high when compared to Nigeria. They also got it at around 7%. So I don't know where they talk about 8, 9 and the other countries are enjoying at lower rates.
But experts contend that the country has limited options, save for the successful listing of the Eurobond.
Can we afford it? Probably not, but I don't think we have much of a choice right now. We need that funding.
Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Access to credit for many Kenyans has been the never-ending headache characterized by exorbitant interest rates charged by commercial banks. And while the central bank, through its central bank rate, has often given the indicative best lending rate that currently stands at 8.5%, majority of Kenyans are forced to make do with alternative sources of credit. Now, this is evident by the low uptake of mortgage. The National Treasury, through a committee constituted by the Deputy President William Ruto to explore the ways of enhancing the private sector credit and mortgage finance in Kenya, has proposed a new formula that will be used to calculate the interest rates in the country. Now, the new formula has been dubbed the Kenya Bank's Reference Rate, otherwise known as the KBBR rate. Now, in the new formula, it's made up of an average of the CBR rate and an average of the 91-day Treasury bill and a constant K. Now, this constant is a premium that a bank may wish to charge. Let's take a look at the old formula. The old formula is made up of the base rate that is determined by a commercial bank and a premium K. Now, this premium is, of course, as I said earlier, a base rate. Now, the base rate in this particular is determined by A, cost of funds, or the borrower cost, or the cost of doing business by a particular bank. So what exactly does this new formula mean to the ordinary Kenyan? One is that commercial banks do not get to determine their own base rates. Also, it means that a published KBBR rate will be in force for 6 months, thus giving some sense of stability to the market. Also, that banks are only allowed to fix their own premium, meaning a borrower is free to choose the bank with the lowest rate. And as I put earlier on, more options for borrowers as you may choose to seek a bank that is offering you a cheaper rate. Now, this is supposed to ensure access to credit and even facilitate more penetration, especially to the private sector in regard to personal loans and finances, as well as the mortgage lending. But what exactly are experts saying in regard to this? Earlier on, I spoke to George Bodo, who's the head of banking and research banking at EcoBank, and he says that, and I quote, "This does not address the root cause. I do not see it benefiting the ordinary borrower, and the best option would have been to have CBK institute a yield curve." I also spoke to Habi Lolaka, who's the CEO of the Kenya Bankers Association, and he says this will allow the ordinary Kenyan to choose a lender with the lowest rate. It is good for the industry. Right, that's how it is with the new formula of the loan disbursement. You be the judge. Let's take a look at what else made headline in the world of business coming up in the corporate briefs.
The rise of social media, content-rich mobile applications and video content easily accessible from cheaper smartphones has prompted the rise of mobile data consumption in sub-Saharan Africa. With Kenya, South Africa and Nigeria being the leading markets, a report by communication services provider Ericsson shows that mobile internet usage has been doubling year on year and is expected to increase 20 times in the next 5 years. The report also shows that by 2019, 75% of mobile subscriptions will be internet inclusive, with voice call traffic growing twofold in the region. Elsewhere, the Capital Markets Authority CMA has embarked on a Students Invest Education program. The program, they say, is aimed at imparting the youth with progressive and key financial literacy at the university level. The regulator, in partnership with Kabarak University, has initiated a student aggressive competition dubbed Kabarak University Capital Markets Challenge, making Kabarak Kenya's first university to enter into such an ambitious finance-associated academic challenge. Finally, a new firm has joined the growing smartphone market in Kenya, hoping to cash in on the sector. Dubai-based X-Touch Electronics says it will be offering for sale tablets, smartphones, smartwatches and smart devices. The firm says it will be banking on its low pricing model to win over the market.
Right, that seems like how we'll wrap up things in business today, but not before we take a look at the numbers coming up next on the Financial Market Review.
The Financial Report in association with KCB M-Benki.
Jibenki.
Jifungulie KCB M-Benki account katika simu yako leo kwa kupiga *522#.
On the day that the Kenyan shilling gained some ground against the dollar, selling at 87.64, that's business. My name is Boni Tunya.
Let's take a recap of our top story tonight, which is all about security, and the government has unveiled a plan that could see the country spend over 87.6 billion shillings to fight terror and boost security. The strategic plan for the next 4 years will see, among other things, the installation of CCTV cameras, purchase of helicopters and speedboats, and the decentralization of passport issuance. Stakeholders have already begun consultations on the strategic plan.
Well, let's also recap for you our big Q tonight. We're asking you whether Kenyans should be denied the right to question security contracts because of national security. Let's look at some of your tweets. One here from Ayub Isra, he says, in Kenya, security is the mother to grand corruption since the projects are not questionable.
Samuel Kibe here says, not at all. If security is every individual's responsibility, why should we be denied that right?
Well, keep tweeting us at Kachingira, at Wilson_Mburu, at KTN Kenya, or send us an SMS on 22155. We'll see what the poll result says at the end of the bulletin.
The same results, the same thing applies to the results. Once the results are out at the end of any other championship, police athletes normally comes with the bulk of the medals, over 80%. As they've been directed to do so, they'll participate on Saturday, but still the selection team has got the final say. Well, we have got new chaps who are coming up, like Mwangangi now doing very well, and others, 800 meters, we have got people like Ferguson Rotich also coming on board. So I know Athletics Kenya, even if some athletes may not be able to perform on Saturday as expected because of the jet lag and they may be getting tired, AK knows because they have got the results and they have been monitoring the performance of each athlete.
Well, it's time to wrap up the bulletin tonight, and let's remind you of our big question tonight. We did ask you, should Kenyans be denied the right to question security contracts because of national security? I believe we have a few tweets that we can look at.
Yes, we do. One from Willie Toz. He says, yes, the issue of security should be left for the government. After all, that's why we elected them. That's what he says.
Tupik here says, Safaricom offered to help Kenya beef up security, yet others want to bring in politics in this. This is serious.
And Harley Mutisia says, not at all. Safaricom may not have the capacity to handle high-level security, intelligence, and confidentiality.
Gabriel Njonjo says a private company may be compromised in matters of security.
And this is Mike Rua Ngugi says, yes, matters of security should be left to law enforcers so that we can blame them squarely. Sounds like he's expecting things to go wrong. Well, thank you very much for your opinions, so many of them this evening. We're really glad that you could join us here on KTN Prime. Our sign language interpreter this evening was Miresha Oiti, doing a great job as always. I'm Nancy Kachingira. Have a great night.
My name is Wilson Mburu. Don't you forget, Jeff Koinange Live is up next. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. They're discussing Dialogue Discord.
From the Standard Group Center.
See you tomorrow.